Just going to put this out there. Allie knows about RITA, and she's a big fan too. Welcome to SLC. You know, I believe that iron sharpens iron, and that's why we're in this room today. I also believe that you get what you search for, and it's really cool as an SLC speaker because the pressure really isn't on us. Anyone that's coming up and speaking at this event is going to deliver. The pressure is on you. You get what you search for in life. Dan hit that as I was coming up. I also believe that nothing in life that is worth it is ever easy. I also believe that we have one of, if not the single greatest consumer product that money can buy. I believe that we have the single most impactful foundational program for young people. And I also believe that there is a feeling in this room that productivity and recruiting are mutually exclusive. That you either get one or you get the other. You can't get both. And I'm here to tell you that that is just not the case. I also believe that much of what people see on the surface in our behavior is dictated by the beliefs that we have below the surface. And on that note, you know, I got really obsessed about this idea, and Simon Sinek in his book, Start With Why, did a great job of co-defining this. And what's really interesting is that all great, inspiring leaders in organizations, they think, act, and communicate in the exact same way, and it's completely opposite of how most people think, act, and communicate. Simon calls it the golden circle. Every organization on the planet knows what they do without a question. Everyone in this room knows what we do. Many people in this room know how we do it. Systems, programs. But I think the real key is understanding why and having a deep-seated, burning passion for that why. The great thing about this is that this is not opinion, it's biology. Not psychology, biology. If you look at the cross-section of the human brain, there's three main sections. The neocortex is our newest brain, and it's responsible for things like analytical, rational thinking, and language. Our limbic brain is responsible for feelings like trust and loyalty. All of our human behavior and decision-making, and has no capacity for language. How many of you have had an experience where a representative has called you to cancel an interview, cancel training, quit the job, and the best that they can muster up is, it just doesn't feel right? Well, that's because the part of our brain that's attached to feelings doesn't control language. And the best they can muster is, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's right for me. See, inspired leaders, impactful leaders in organizations think from the inside out. In Start With Why, Simon Sinek talks about people do not buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to attract people who need what you have, but to believe what you believe. So here's what I believe. I believe that today's youth is our future. And that the traditional path of go to school, get good grades, get an internship, get a job when you graduate, is leaving soon-to-be college graduates unprepared to thrive in the new economy, condemning them unable to contribute to their communities, their families, and their vocation in the manner they've passionately envisioned for themselves. That is the why. And that is why I know for a fact that recruiting is a privilege. But I have to say that I imagine there's a percentage of people that feel like it's a duty or it's an obligation. I know it to be a privilege. Recruiting is a privilege. Because when you have a young man like Louis Esposito, who didn't even hit Dirty 30 for the summertime, worked with me for a handful of weeks, and you get this type of text 4 years later, I know that recruiting is a privilege. I know that recruiting is a privilege because of young men like Joseph Koss, whose mother was an immigrant to this country, who grew up in a single-parent household, who recently, through his DM opportunity, through his sales rep opportunity, was able to save enough money for him and his brother to just purchase their mother's home. That is a privilege. But is it being treated like that, fostered like that, by every single individual in this room? My objective of this message is coming out of it that is what happens. Because recruiting is a privilege. And when you look at things in that light, as a privilege versus an obligation, versus a duty, the way that you operate changes. Recruiting is a privilege. I tell you what, recruiting is courageous. When I think about recruiting, I think about the fact that it takes guts to take someone from the school that may not be the best, the background that may not be the best, who may not have a car or a driver's license, and teach them to be highly successful selling Cutco. Is it that they're not good enough to sell, or is it that you're not good enough to train them? Because recruiting is courageous. And I know that because of people like Isabella Valdez. The 3 young ladies in this picture are going to be 3 of my top branches in the summer of 2020. What's really interesting about this is if you look at this, these young ladies have amazing energy. You can tell they have confidence. But each and every single one of these young ladies was so introverted when they walked into my doors. Isabella on the far right, she was my dom this summer. She did not speak more than one full sentence to me at a time for maybe the first 4 to 5 weeks that she worked with me. Alexandra and I have gotten really close to her parents. They're Catholic. We go to the same church. They're great people. And when I have, someone like Ana Valdez Aldana, Isabella's mom, coming up to me and just, she cannot stop spilling over with how proud she is of Isabella, with how much growth she's seen in her. That young lady has courage. Anna in the middle is pre-med at UVA. She shared a great story with me recently where she went back to school, UVA's, top public school in the country, great school. And she was asking her friends what they did over the summertime. And as she went back and forth, there was a particular one of her friends that just burst into tears, freaking out. She's like, "You're going to get into med school. I'm not." But this is a young lady who would have been mortified to speak at my TLA. And on Saturday, crushed her drill for skill in front of 40 people. Recruiting is courageous. Recruiting is conviction. Conviction is deeper than belief. A couple years ago, I talked about the power of conviction. And the idea that this is where belief lies. And that this is where conviction lies. Maybe it's my background, maybe it's my upbringing. Maybe it's the fact that I didn't grow up with much. And when I had an opportunity to make unlimited income based on my effort, based on my work ethic, based on my skill development, that I took full advantage of it. Maybe for me, it's that it was a life-changing experience. But my guess would be that every single person in here would talk about their experience with Vector in the same way. This is Patty. Patty launched out of training 2 weeks ago. See, it takes conviction to recruit. You know why I know that? Patty doesn't have bottom teeth. She's 58. She doesn't have a car or a driver's license. And I met her as I was walking into training. She was smoking a Black and Mild in her car. Patty just knocked out her second promotion because recruiting is conviction. And I believe that Cutco is the easiest product on the face of the planet to sell. I believe that you don't have to sell Cutco. I believe that people don't buy Cutco, they buy your enthusiasm and your belief. I believe that people don't buy that set of knives, they buy the fact that you genuinely believe that they should. Recruiting is conviction. And when I think about people like Patty, and how many more Patties there are out there that are being screened out. See, I know some of you in the room are thinking, oh, I would have kept her too. I would have trained her too. She would have sold $3,000 too. I've seen y'all's kept percentages. I know that she would get screened out in 80% of the offices in this room. $3,000 her first 2 weeks. She'll hit dirty 30 this campaign. No doubt in my mind. Because recruiting is conviction. Recruiting is progress. You want to move your organization forward? You have to make a decision to recruit. In 2014, I restarted my office over from scratch. Some of you, a couple SLCs ago, heard the story of me being evicted from my office the day after Christmas in 2013, not having an office for 4 months, going to the company trip in 2014 in Panama, on my way out. Like, my internal dialogue was this: no one would blame me. They would all be like, yeah, that made sense, that timing. Recruiting is progress. I remember when I came back and I restarted that office in 2014, I had 2 assistant managers, that was it. Neither one of them had gone through TLA, neither of them had any formal training whatsoever. And what I told them was this: get people in front of me. I operate at a higher level the more people are in front of me. I don't care what the caliber of the training class is. If it's 10 versus 5, I'm going to run a better seminar. If it's 15 versus 10, I'm going to run a better seminar. Get people in front of me. Because what I know for a fact, and what I saw happen in the pilot this summer, is that regardless of the caliber of the student that is in the training, that's launching from the training, they are connected with high caliber potential recruits. Each and every single one of them. Recruiting is progress. This was summer kickoff 2018. I remember thinking, what have I gotten myself into? So in this photo, 3 managers in this photo quit before May 15th. DMs. 3 DMs quit before May 15th. Recruiting is progress, baby. Because this was summer kickoff 2019. And when I think about, like, how gratifying that photo is. 95% of the people in this photo have retained. In this photo, there are at least 10 branch letters of intent. Recruiting is progress. I tell you what, recruiting is exhilarating. You know, I think people get enamored with the training pop, right? You know, and that's the exhilarating part. When they launch out of training, they're on those first 3 days worth of demos, the PDI line is blowing up, the demo tracker is just insane, right? I think a lot of people view that as exhilarating. You know what I think about what's exhilarating? When I walked into my office on December 26th, 2018 for my big dance seminar, and we had 55 people in day one of training. You want to talk about exhilarating? It's not exhilarating to get the training pop. That's a foregone conclusion when they're in front of you. At least it should be. When they're in front of you, that's a foregone conclusion. That's not exhilarating. What's exhilarating is the process of getting them in. If all you're looking forward to is the destination, you're not really enjoying the experience. I remember going to Drew Frank's office in 2015. I remember Drew said, hey, Kathy and Danny and me are getting together for a mastermind. You should come. I was a DM still at the time. I'm like, oh my God. I'm in. I'm so in. And I spoke at Drew's staff meeting, and I walked in. And as I was walking in the office, the first thing I saw was the mural to the left. And you see 2007, 2008, whatever it is, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But here's what's interesting. Do you see where they started writing the numbers? Like he's planning on a minimum of 3 more columns. He's like, yeah, we'll start to the left and work our way over. That's exhilarating. I remember walking in and seeing the silver, and this was like, by the way, this was only part of it. There was some on the floor, and Drew shared a story where this summer shelf broke and 4 came crashing down. You know, hashtag Drew Frank problems. And but I remember walking in, and I remember feeling like I was pretty good at what I was doing. I remember at this point, I think I had a couple silver cups. But then I walked in and I saw that. I have never in my life been so humbled and excited simultaneously. You don't get these by recruiting less than 100 people in a summer. You don't get these recruiting less than 200 people in a year. You don't get these doing less than $4, $5, $6, $700,000 in new business in a year. Where does that stem from? It stems from recruiting. But how are you viewing it? Is it a chore? Is it something that you do to just get to the fun stuff? You know, I have a vision and a mission, and it's inspiring. And I'm on fire about it. And I want to positively and dramatically impact the lives of over 1 million young people in my time with Cutco. I did the math. I've trained about 5,000 students. I got a long way to go. That is exhilarating. Recruiting is culture. I remember when I took over as a DVC, I made a decision that I wasn't going to focus on things like systems and programs initially. What I was going to focus on was culture. And by the way, culture doesn't change when the coach tells players, hey, that's not how we do things. Culture changes when players tell other players, hey, that's not how we do things. So I decided to lock arms with 2 of the gentlemen that are in this room right now, Andy Noggle and Zach Miller. I decided that I was going to remove, that I had no lens, I had no filter, and I knew these guys were special and that I liked them. So I poured in to Andy and Zach. I poured in to Joseph Koss, who at the time was my PSM. And I remember at one point thinking, this isn't happening the way I thought it was going to. I'm like, where's this push culture already? Anything great takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to work out 2 days a week, eat well for a week, and step in the, I might step in the mirror and see some results if I did that for a week, but recruiting is culture. This is our TLA class. 40 deep at the end of the summer. And one thing you're going to see on this is that every race and ethnicity is represented. That's something we take a lot of pride in. Recruiting is culture. You want to know what culture is? When you run a divisional event for 150 people deep, and it has SC2 type energy. All that happens from recruiting. Recruiting is culture. And culture eats strategy for lunch. We made a decision that we were going to recruit big. That when those people stepped into the office, that we were going to train the hell out of them. That regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their religious background or belief, regardless of the neighborhood they drove from, the high school they went to, their dad's last name, that we were going to make sure that they kicked ass at the job. And it takes time to build things, but it also takes consistent effort, consistent focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. You have to be intentional. It has to be a daily decision. Because recruiting is culture. I tell you what, this group is going to do some damage in 2020. This group knows the power of recruiting. This group is, right now, the chatter in this TLA class is winter break, I can't wait to get PRs in, holy crap, we're going to light it up. Because recruiting is culture. Why? How? Then what? It's really, really easy for us to try to recruit and focus on our effort and everything on the how. And listen, you're going to get a lot of the how over the next couple days. You're going to get a lot of the how from people like Trey Ketchum and Kathy and Alex. You're going to get a lot of how. I'm just here to tell you, I really believe deeply that if you latch onto the why, that the how will present itself. When your why is strong enough, the how presents itself. And I really was excited about giving this message because what it required me to do is to really sit down and for a moment, even myself, be intentional about how I'm operating in this business and why. If you recruit people who need a job, they'll work for your money. If you recruit people who believe what you believe, they will work for you with blood, sweat, and tears. So again, I believe that today's youth is our future. And that the traditional path of get good grades, get an internship, get a job when you graduate, is leaving soon-to-be college graduates unprepared to thrive in the new economy, condemning them, unable to contribute to and impact their families, their communities, and their vocation in the way that they passionately envisioned for themselves. That's the why. I teach college students how to effectively lead themselves and positively influence other people. They develop valuable and applicable skills, experience indescribable personal growth. They establish a resume that differentiates them from their peer group, and they make great money doing it. We just happen to sell knives. Need a summer job? Inside out. This is why I see myself here for the next 20 plus years. This why. I believe the world needs us. I believe that every industry in this country is starving for leadership. I believe that young people are our future. And I don't believe that the professors at their universities are quite as passionate about their development and who they develop into than the people in this room. My challenge to you is to prove it with your how, day in and day out. Because if you build it, they will come. We just happen to sell knives. But the why is so much more important. Thank you very much.